Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our first presentation of CFRW Presents. In keeping with CFRW's tenets, our goal with this series is to inform and encourage women to engage in the issues facing us here in California as well as nationally. I just want to remind you all that we have a number of speakers coming up. On March 28th, we have Utah State Treasurer Marlo Oaks, who will be speaking about ESG investing and woke capitalism, what those things are, and what legislators and citizens can do to protect from their dangers. On April 11th, we have Tom Del Beccaro, former chair of the California GOP. He's an attorney, an author, and a contributor on Fox News and other outlets. And he's been a friend to CFRW for many years, and we always look forward to having him speak with us. On April 18th, we'll have Susan Shelley, Vice President of Communications for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. She's also a very familiar opinion columnist and editorial writer, and she's often seen on TV and various news shows. We will be adding more speakers to this series in the weeks ahead, so keep checking the website and look for our emails from the desk of President Janet Price. And don't forget to go to the website, www.cfrw.org, and register for those events. They are all free, and we encourage you to invite your Republican friends to join us. Thanks very much. We'll be getting started here very shortly.
I'd like to welcome all of you. I'm so excited that you have joined us on our very first speaker series, CFRW Presents 2023. And this is a very exciting night. I love these series, and I do thank Gretchen Cox for starting this. It's a great way to go through the year and just join each other with these great speakers. Anyway, I do want to thank the team. There is always a team that puts this together. Of course, Gretchen Cox, our first VP, is in charge of programs. And she is also going to be assisted tonight by 3rd Vice President and Region 5 Director, Nancy Wofford. They're going to be handling questions in the chat room, and I'm sure Gretchen's going to talk to you about that in just a little bit. But there are many who help put these things together, and I will be thanking them all later on tonight. But we do hope that you enjoy this evening. I'm going to turn the program over to Gretchen, who's going to give you some housekeeping tips, and then she will get our program started with our honored speaker. All right, Gretchen, thank you.
Thank you, President Janet. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're all here. I know there's a lot more people still coming in, but we're going to try to keep this on time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It's so nice to see all of you that are here already. Just a few housekeeping points before I introduce tonight's special speaker. First of all, please keep yourselves muted. Okay, we don't want to override our speaker with background noise. Feel free to write any questions you may have for Carl DeMaio into the chat section, and Nancy Wofford, our 3rd Vice President, and I will be going through those. And when Carl is done speaking, we will go through the questions and ask them. So just try to keep it a little bit more organized that way. We should have plenty of time. We do plan to finish at 7:30. I just want to make you all aware that since we don't get to do these Zooms terribly often, if any of you would like to stay on afterwards and just visit with friends that you haven't seen for a while, we will leave the Zoom open to allow for that. So if you feel chatty tonight after our program, please feel free to stay on for a little while. And Audrey Boyd is kind enough to, or Sherry, whichever one of them is controlling it tonight.
They're both kind.
Okay, is kind enough to let us stay on and chat afterwards. Lastly, please keep yourself muted. We love your dogs. We just don't want to hear them. So with that said, I am going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. We are so excited to have Carl DeMaio here with us. I saw him on earlier, so I know he's here with us. Many of you are familiar with Carl and his tireless efforts to fix California. He's been a supporter and frequent speaker to CFRW members for a long time. Carl is one of the most well-known activists in California and has spent years fighting as a reformer and taxpayer advocate. Since 2004, he's been the chairman of Reform California, his grassroots organization that advocates for transparency and accountability in state and local government. He's written numerous successful ballot initiatives over the years, fighting for tax reform, common sense rules for things like how city and county contract bids are handled, as well as pension reforms. He served on the San Diego City Council for 4 years, and he worked very hard to cut the city budget, including not taking his pension benefits when he could have very well done that, like the rest of them do. Carl also has a radio show on News Radio 600, Kogo, out of San Diego daily from 3 to 6 p.m. This man never stops, not sure he sleeps, and we're happy he is giving us some of his time. So welcome, Carl DeMaio.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? Good. Okay. It's great to be with all of you, and it's wonderful to see that you're continuing the fight in California, even though it is so easy to succumb to the negative outlook on what's happening. But let me just tell you right now that because conservatives stayed and fought in California, you can thank a California Republican for the fact that the House majority was flipped to the Republicans, and that Nancy Pelosi is not speaker, and that we now have a check on Joe Biden's socialist agenda. Because when you take a look at what has happened in California, and this will be the real focus and the thrust of my remarks tonight, and then we'll take questions. California Republicans did the impossible, what every political consultant across the country on the Republican and Democrat sides thought was impossible. we flipped enough seats in California and we retained enough seats in California to give the House majority to the Republicans. And a lot of what went into that fight we'll be talking about tonight, because we did not get a lot of help from the National Republican Party in our fights in California. We were literally left for dead in the ditch. And my hope is that the party will learn that it cannot just write California off and give California to the left, that they need to support us freedom fighters out here. So let me begin first by sharing my screen. A lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight is available to you on the website reformcalifornia.org. This is our homepage that has not only news, which we'll talk about in a moment as the important part of winning the debate, winning hearts and minds over by giving them the truth about the problems in California and our Republican solutions, but also getting people involved through campaigns, events, voter guides, getting them to sign up to be volunteers, and then, of course, getting involved in becoming contributors. And so when you take a look at this website, we do have basically a whole reformatted approach to providing people in California who are hungry for real news, stories on virtually every failing of the California Democrats, including a new study showing $4.5 billion in hidden state taxes on California utility bills, and that climate change mandates are adding even more costs, and that the real reason why our utility rates are high are because of Democrat politicians, or the latest crime wave in California, fueled by Democrat passed laws, including the early release of violent prisoners from prisons. We take action by calling on the resignation of the Public Utility Commission, because none of them have any experience as a single day. Not even one of the 5 commissioners has any experience in a utility company. It's shocking, right? The liberal media won't tell you about this. And on and on and on. Government takeover of our healthcare, frivolous lawsuits, destroying jobs. And so we believe that the more we get people this information, the more we can change the minds of the voters. And that really is part of our strategy. So I'm going to share with you a slide that I presented recently in San Diego. We also did this in Riverside 2 weeks ago. And these are the 5 strategies that Reform California that we're pursuing. Now, before we talk about strategies, what's our mission? Our mission is to restore political balance in California. Oh, I know. You might say, well, Carl, why don't you just say make it red? Because I'm a sober guy, okay? I'm not promising you that this is going to change overnight, that California is going to become a red state overnight. I do believe it will become a red state. I do believe that it will happen sooner rather than later, if we get our act together and really take the fight to the Democrats. But instead, I want us to have a mission that people can understand and that they can see is actually doable in the next 2 to 4 to 6 years. And that is, our job is to kick the Republican Party in the ass so that it becomes a functioning opposition party again. We need 2 parties in California. We right now only have one. We have a supermajority Democrat Party, supported, by the way, by the liberal media. And so we need to have a functioning opposition party in California. And if we fix some of the problems with the Republican Party and get our side to do a better job, I do believe that we will restore political balance. And yes, by restoring political balance, we will touch people's lives in a positive way. So what are the strategies to restore political balance in California? Well, I'll tell you some of the measurements of it. I want to stop bad Democrat ideas. I want to kick Democrat politicians out of office. I want to break the supermajority in the Senate and in the Assembly. I do want to get us our first statewide elected official in 20 years. And yes, I do think we can elect a governor, whether that's in 4 years or 8 years. We're going to get a Republican governor sooner rather than later. And so those are the metrics of success: flipping seats and changing policy. The strategies have to be 5-fold. Number one, frame the debate. We have to have Republicans offer a bold agenda. And by framing the debate, we also have to get around the liberal media and deliver our ideas directly to the voters. We cannot beg the liberal media to do its job. And we cannot expect equal coverage. These people are liars, cheats, and thieves. They are in bed with the Democrats. And so we cannot play by their rules. What we have to do in California is we have to create alternative channels to get the word, the message, the news to the voters. And let me tell you right now, there's a huge opportunity happening. As someone who's in broadcast radio, I know a little bit about broadcast industry. Newspaper subscriber base has plummeted. Every time someone cancels their subscription to a liberal newspaper, an angel gets its wings in heaven. Okay. So those newspapers are dying, and that's a good thing. But also your local news outlets, which are all owned by these big woke companies, Disney and Comcast, those local news stations have lost a dramatic percentage of their viewership. People are cutting the cord. More people, by the way, are getting news from digital or YouTube than ever before. And so under this first strategy, we're talking about how do we message to voters and how do we come up with a bold agenda? Those of you who remember me from the gas tax repeal, that's strategy one. Because what I said to Republicans is, right now, no one's paying attention to you, but you need to take and grab onto one hot, sexy issue and go all the way through the election with it. Gas tax repeal, car tax, gas tax. And so we were able to make that issue alive again this past election, which is why I think we actually did much better than the national Republicans in California. But what I want is a bold agenda that takes, no prisoners, that doesn't flinch, that's proud of being conservative. I don't believe that we win elections by having cheap imitations to Democrats. I don't think we win elections by having milquetoast and moderate. I think we have to paint in bold and brilliant colors. We have to draw the contrast. So let me give you an example real quick of such an agenda and show you how different it is. Remember when Donald Trump came down the escalator and he said illegal immigration is ruining this country? And 80% of the American people agree with him on that. And he said, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Now, what he did with that was brilliant. Because when everyone heard that line, build a wall, make Mexico pay for it, they saw a wall in their head. And a wall is a concrete thing, literally, that you can judge a politician on to determine whether they kept their promises. Here's another promise. We're going to give everyone $10,000 debt forgiveness for college loans. That's a Democrat idea. And it's a very powerful one because everyone who has college loan debt, mom, dad, the college kids themselves, all of them in their mind immediately see $10,000 in their head. That debt payment becoming lighter. Now, you and I both know it's a fraud and it's bad policy, but it's very effective messaging, framing the debate. So what I want to do is run through real quick an agenda I think we should run on in 2024. And there may be a better agenda out there. I don't care if there's a better agenda. Let's just come up with an agenda that's bold and clear and, exciting. How about this? Republicans are running on 3 issues. Number 1, cost of living. Number 2, crime. Number 3, homelessness. On the first issue of cost of living, we are going to give all Californians immediate relief in their household budget by eliminating the gas tax, giving you a $1.29 reduction in every gallon of gas. We're also going to give everyone in California, every household, $2,500 in a utility rate rebate and apologize to you because the Democrats overcharged you for your gas and your electricity. So all of you will get $2,500 immediately. We owe you more. It's a start. It's an apology for what the Democrats did to you, but you are owed that money back and then some. And then we're going to cut your utility rates for gas and electricity by 25%, and we're going to freeze it for 5 years. In the meantime, we're going to ramp up production of energy, reliable, affordable energy, so that within 5 years, we can continue to provide savings. Second, anyone that was released by Gavin Newsom on early release because of COVID or the early release credits under Prop 57 will be put back into prison. Sexually violent predators will no longer be allowed to be placed in residential communities or by schools. And we will fully enforce any infraction, including property crimes. Third, on the issue of homelessness, we will offer and guarantee that every homeless individual will get a place to sleep every night, a warm bed every night. We will give them 3 meals a day, and we will take care of their needs. However, it comes with strings. Every homeless individual will remain clean, sane, and sober. You violate these rules, you will be put into a mandatory government treatment program. And of course, you will be required to work at least 2 hours a day cleaning up parks, beaches, bays, canyons, our streets, because if we're going to give you all this assistance, we do expect you to start working some sort of job for the community. And we hope to place you in a job once you're stable. This is the Republican plan. Cut the cost of living immediately, keep you safe by getting criminals off the street, cleaning up the filth and the grime by reducing homelessness. And we will enact this agenda within the first 100 days if you give us the majority in the legislature. Now, you and I might say, well, Carl, we're not going to get the majority. Yeah, but if you run on an agenda like that and we get the message out and we all get behind clear, specific commitments, I think we're probably going to win a couple more seats than we won in the last couple cycles. And so when people say, well, Carl, it's impossible to win in California as a Republican, you know what? I haven't even seen the Republicans offer something compelling enough to warrant a sweeping election. So let's get our act together. Let's do that. So at Reform California, we're trying to do some of that, and that is offering bold ideas, laying out the problems with Democrat policies, and we've got it organized around campaigns. So we are taking the fight in terms of cost of living on tax hikes, as well as the issues of utility rate hikes. We also have obviously election integrity, we'll talk about in a minute, public safety, homelessness, school board reform, and a variety of other more niche topics. Stop the mileage tax, which is a really hot issue down here in San Diego, and it's coming statewide very soon. But for every single one of these areas, if you click on any of them, so for example, if you click under the utility rate topic, you'll find that we've got information on the topic about how we're paying higher rates than the rest of the country, how the Democrats put in $4.5 billion in hidden state taxes. We ask people to sign the petition because we want to harvest voter information and tag voters that are in agreement with us. And so that all we need to do is get their zip code. We have a data system that matches their voter ID once we get their zip code and their last name. We ask them to share the report on our utility rate hikes so that they can share a very lengthy report that was produced by a 501c3, the Transparency Foundation, which we work with, that shows in detail the real cost drivers of California gas and utility rates being the government politicians. And we have the receipts, we have the charts, we have the comparisons that show the facts. And this is something the liberal media refuses to do because they're afraid that people might turn on their lovely little Democrat friends in office. But look at this, we go into the actual rate cases. This should have been done by the liberal media. They won't do it, but we will. And then under here, we have various articles related to the issue. So news and information. Another thing that we've decided to do is we found out that more and more people are getting their information on YouTube. So we just started a brand new feature called our podcast, the Reform California podcast. And let me show you this. Is your dog racist? And I don't know if the audio is going to be heard here. But we've got our podcast. This is on racist dogs. Look at this racist dog. Democrats say dogs are racist. Well, you know what? It's a little clickbaity, but people watching the video are going to walk away being like, California politicians, Democrats think dogs are racist. They want to ban dogs. Yeah, canine dogs. They don't like police combating crime. Or how about the mileage tax? Or how about utility rate hikes? Or why not talk about people trying to think about leaving California? And so we know that we've got to get more video out there. And we've got to take this to where people are cutting the cord and watching videos on their cell phones and videos on YouTube and get by the liberal media. We would like to turn every Republican candidate into their own social media influencer, their own newsmaker in their areas. And it's not that hard to build up these communication systems and equip our candidates with them. So that is the first part of this strategy, which is we believe that we have to frame the debate with a bold agenda, and then we've got to build news and communication vehicles to get the message directly to voters. It's not going to be the media. We cannot issue press releases and expect them to give us fair treatment. That's the reality. Second, once we have an agenda, we need people to actually win office and put it into practice. And that's where candidate recruitment, training, and support has to be a top priority. And we have a problem here amongst Republicans. Nobody knows who the Republican is running for office because most of our county Republican parties are not issuing endorsement guides. And so we've got to get the word out through endorsement guides as to who are the Republican candidates. And then, of course, that's to Republican voters. We have to go after independent voters and brand our candidates based upon issues that we know we can win on. And we have to make sure that when we endorse, that all of our endorsements are unified. No more splitting the vote. That's what the Democrats would love to see us do. We got to unite. And so we're doing candidate recruitment and training. The idea is to get behind one candidate in each race. But take a look at this article, this ad here. Warning, La Mesa politicians want you to pay a $600 mileage tax. Warning, Carlsbad politicians propose a new mileage tax. Now notice, not a single word of Republican is on this mailer. You know why? It went to Democrats and independents. In both of these cases, the campaigns won. La Mesa, a 65% Democrat city. Mileage tax. Vote for the slate of the tax fighters. Melanie Burkholder won the most Democrat seat in Carlsbad, flipped it, the beach community. And again, none of this says Republican because we need to win voters on issues. And they don't like the word Republican. And that's going to take time to fix. But in the meantime, we got to go after the voters on the issues that they care about: homelessness, crime, and cost of living. And so when I say recruit candidates and endorse them, it's making sure that we also hit an endorsement for independents that's not a Republican endorsement, but rather an endorsement based on the candidates' positions on the issues. Third, got a debate that you framed on solid issues. You got good candidates. Now you got to turn out the vote. And that means not only communicating the endorsements with those voter guides, but registering voters, harvesting ballots, and demanding election integrity in the process. It is a shame that the county Republican parties don't all send out their endorsement guides to Republicans. So Republicans don't know. We've got on our site, our voter guide. It's called the Plain English Voter Guide. And it was by the way, this got more hits than the California Republican Party voter guide. We have a statewide voter guide that we sent out. And right now our team is able to cover 4 counties: San Diego, Riverside, Los Angeles, and Orange County. In this next election, we need your help to do more voter guides. We will put as many up as we can compile with certainty. But when you click under it, it will go to the voter guide for that area. This is, let's see here. San Diego. It's hosted on our Kogo news site, but it basically contains all of the propositions with a little brief description. And then it goes through all the local propositions with a brief description for each. And then it goes down a whole list of candidates for judges all the way down to city council races. And again, not a word on this page says Republican by design, because we have to get our voters on the issues that they care about. So voter guides, communicating that. And then ballot harvesting. That's where our volunteers are crucial. We've got something called barbecue, beer, and ballots, but we also have something called drive and drag. And we basically recruit our volunteers to drive door to door or walk door to door to deliver the voter guides, but also the drive and drag program is designed to turn out low propensity voters. And that way, our volunteers don't like walking door to door. A lot of our elderly ladies are more interested in driving and then letting someone more middle-aged jump out, go knock on the door, and try to harvest the ballot. Let's talk about election integrity. We have a 2-track program there, and I consider this part of getting out the vote, because getting out the vote means we get out our legal votes and we stop them from turning out illegal votes. So the first thing that we're doing is we want to qualify a voter ID law in California, and there is information on that, as well as require a validation of signatures on mail-in ballots. There's a whole video of my presentation last week on the requirements that we would put in this ballot measure. But we also have a partnership with the Transparency Foundation. They're a 501c3, so they don't get involved with politics, but they do have an election integrity effort called Secure the Vote California. And the whole issue there is encouraging voters to vote the safe way, send, audit, fix, and evaluate, and track their ballot using Where's My Ballot to verify that they're not disenfranchised. We also encourage early voting by mail. I know a lot of you might say, well, what do you mean? I'll answer that in the questions. I know you might be interested in that, but all the election integrity experts who know what they're talking about and know the law understand that we've got to win the early vote. We've got to get our votes in early in the first 72 hours. That then allows us to chase low propensity ballots and drag our low propensity voters to the polls. We're partnering with churches and others on Safe Vote Sunday, which is the first Sunday after the ballots arrive, to make sure we can turn out votes with the idea that people should vote that first weekend. Now, if you don't vote that first week by mail, I prefer that you go into a polling center and vote in person. And we would like to see polling centers open much, much farther out of the election, because our voters like to go in person. I do not want you showing up to vote on election day. That is the highest risk to our team. If you want to wait to the end, then at least get your vote in on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Because Tuesday, election day, should be about us dragging the lazy voters literally by the hand or something else into the polling station to vote. And I cannot have long lines of my conservative voters who just say, well, I want to do it like I always done it. Well, you know what? The Democrats are counting on that, and you're going to help us lose this election. So vote this weekend so that we don't have a line. Because if there's a line, I can't get those lazy voters to show up. I got to have it to have no excuse for the lazy voters. And you know what I'm talking about. If any of you have participated in get out the vote efforts, you know, if you have a lazy voter and they see that line, oh, they're going to turn around and walk away, and you're not going to get the vote. So we got to be smart about this. And then, of course, the biggest thing I'm really excited about, I don't want you to be an election volunteer. I want you to be an election worker. I want you to open the ballot. I want you to actually reject bad signatures. And so we are really excited about the pilot projects that we did last election on getting our trusted conservatives to take jobs and to get hired by election offices to do the job with integrity. Do you know that the liberals have infiltrated these election offices? Well, it's high time that we get our trusted conservatives in there and sit right next to them and call out the BS and be a whistleblower if necessary in order to make sure that the process is done right. Where our workers got into those offices, we spiked the ballot rejection rate, which is a good thing. If you don't have signatures that match, they need to be rejected. And there's always a way for the voter to verify their identity, and that is called ballot curing. But in the meantime, until we get voter ID, we need county election offices to be stock full of wonderful people with integrity who can do the job. And we're missing out if we don't do that every election. Okay, so that's election integrity. The next strategy, and this is a big one, and I don't think people understand this in the Republican Party. We are losing our workforce to run campaigns. Take a look at your own clubs. Membership is declining in many of these clubs. And if we let this continue to slide, we will lose our activist base. We will lose our volunteer base. And I am angry with the California Republican Party for not giving a damn about the volunteer base. And it's time that we understand that if we don't fix this, we are going to continue to lose elections. Now, let me tell you about volunteers. We cannot expect volunteers just to suddenly show up 4 weeks out of the election and say, okay, I'm ready to work. We've got to condition our volunteers to see activism as something that happens 365 days a year, even during the off year. Volunteerism needs to be a habit. It is not a one-time thing. And so we are not tapping into the potential of our volunteers. In fact, everyone I talk to, when we call them up and we do events, when we ask them to volunteer, they say, no one's ever asked me before. I've never been asked to walk my precinct. I've never been, and a lot of people are saying, no one has knocked on my door in 10 years from the Republican Party. That's why we're losing elections. So we have to fix that. The good news is that we know if we fix this, we can be much more competitive in California. So don't be so depressed about California, where we're going. More on that in just a minute, but volunteer recruitment has to be a top priority. That's why in San Diego, we've partnered with our county Republican Party, and we have something called the One Ask program. The One Ask program is that the party, Reform California, and all of our candidates, if they want the endorsement, have to play ball. They all tell the volunteers to go and sign up. And what this does is it means that we are able to then care for our volunteers. Volunteers need to be asked once a week to do something. They're not going to volunteer every week, but as long as they're asked once a week, you'll probably get them once a month. You have to give volunteers a diversity of assignments: stuffing envelopes, walking door to door, collecting signatures, running events, making phone calls, sending text messages, delivering yard signs. Not everything is something that people are interested in. So you've got to give them a diversity of programs to participate in. And so if your county does not have a program like this, you're not going to have volunteers. You got to start it in the off year. You also need to make sure that when a volunteer shows up to work, don't waste their time. And this is where a lot of first-time candidates really abuse volunteers. And I don't think they mean to. It's just they are not prepared to welcome the volunteer, to verify the volunteer, to train the volunteer, to encourage the volunteer, to give a recognition and rewards. And so it's important that we staff the volunteer programs with good volunteer managers. I've got to say that we've got volunteer coordinators across the state who are wonderful volunteer managers, unpaid, and their job is just to check in with volunteers, mentor them, guide them, and deploy them. So volunteers, also college and high school kids, we are losing the battle for the high school and college kids. And so we have a similar program to deal with this at the Transparency Foundation. It's called California Emerging Leaders. This is for conservative or moderate. I'll take anyone to the right of Mao, by the way, because anyone to the right of Mao as a college kid, I can work with, I can save you. But these college kids, and check out this video, California Emerging Leaders Initiative, these kids are afraid to admit that they're conservative because they're going to be bullied if they do. by their teachers first, not by their colleagues or their friends. But it provides social networking events, training programs, support for their college Republican and high school Republican conservative clubs, and then internships and jobs. And this Saturday, we've got our first workshop of the spring semester, effective communication strategies for young conservatives. A lot of Republican women have asked us to put this on for them, so we might actually do that. But how to basically win arguments without losing friends is basically how we're teaching the kids, and they love it. The next one is defending freedom and equal rights as a young conservative, and then how young conservatives can pursue a career in politics and public service. This is where we pitch them on taking a job in politics and canvassing door to door during elections. But we have to have the workforce issue solved. We are not able to actually staff and run our campaigns without these volunteers and students. Finally, raise and share funds. People are always in politics raising money. And I always ask them, give me a plan. You don't just raise money. Tell me what your plan is, and then ask me for the resources to implement it. But unless you give me a good plan, I'm not giving you any money. We also need to do a better job of sharing funds. There's a lot of inefficiency. The Democrats are very efficient. They're like a collective. It's just awful. But they are very resource efficient because their union bosses are writing the checks. So the union boss is saying, hey, we're not just walking for the school board candidate or the congressional candidate or the assembly candidate. No, 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 no. We got all of our mindless liberals out here today with one slate, and everyone's all in for the team. And so we've got to get our candidates and party resources and clubs and coalitions working more efficiently together, because we're never going to have the money the Democrats have. And so these are the 5 strategies of Reform California. We work in collaboration with groups. And yes, I know I have a reputation around the state for being blunt. I'm not here to, blow smoke up your rear end. I'm here because our side needs to get in the fight. And there's a lot of people that are fighting with each other rather than fighting with the Democrats, and I'm sick of it. And I think you should be sick of it too. I don't take any salary as Reform California chair. This is a labor of love, and I know many of you are all, you're not, as president of your club, you're not getting any compensation. You get the late night calls about this, that, and the other thing. So look, we don't have time for niceties. It's okay to be nice, but at the end of the day, we're judged on results, and we're not producing good results. Now, let me tell you the good side. We are making progress. You just don't see it. And let me tell you about the progress we're making. For every one conservative that's leaving the state, and I understand why they're leaving. I think they're wrong, but they're leaving. A net migration of 2 million, net migration of 500,000, but that meant that 2 million Californians actually left, because you have to offset the increase of illegal immigration of the state. 1.5 million illegal immigrants over 3 years, 2 million people fled, meaning you have a net migration of 500,000. The media won't tell you that, but that's actually what happened. And those 2 million that fled, mainly conservative, can't stomach living here anymore. But take a look at our numbers. Our numbers have not changed. We're still getting 42% of the vote, 40%, 41%, sometimes 45%. And we flipped seats. So what happened? You know what happened? For every one conservative that left the state, we actually did convert a Democrat or an independent to our side. We did. The numbers don't lie. So if you're holding your own while you're losing conservatives, it means that you are converting. We also are producing results in terms of flipped seats. We lost a seat or two every congressional election in California for 22 years. 1998 was the last time we flipped even one congressional seat. In 2020, we flipped 4. Michelle Steele, Young Kim, David Valadao, and Mike Garcia. In 2021, the Democrats said, fine, you flip those seats, we're getting them back and more. We're gonna manipulate redistricting. And they drew maps that were not good for us. No, not good. Each of the seats got Much worse. Devin Nunes retired because his seat was turned into a purple seat. It was a harder seat. Well, guess what? Of the 6 seats that were in jeopardy, we won all 6. Oh, and we also flipped a Democrat seat when John Duarte won in the Central Valley for a total of 7 seats that would have been going to the Democrats that we either flipped or retained over the 2 cycles. You know what the majority is in Washington? 5 seats. Again, I'm telling you, you can thank a California Republican conservative for sticking around and fighting. So I don't want you to feel as though it's a lost cause, because it's not. Number one, we are seeing results. Number two, we are converting voters. We just need to get more of our conservatives to stay and fight. And number three, we are not playing at our top performance. If we start getting our side to do some of these strategies, I do believe that we will continue to see gains. With that, let me open it up to questions. I know it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. I think we've got, let's see here. We've got 17 minutes. Go ahead. Who's first? Who wants to moderate?
Okay, had to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Took a second.
And me too. Sorry, Carl.
Okay. Okay, we have a couple of questions in the chat, and then I believe we're going to open the floor up to questions from the group. Okay, so we'll do our best to keep control of that. So the first question, Carl, is Vicky from the Merced area. She said they need this really badly up there. Where can we get this information so they can get on board with you? And I guess that would be your website.
Go to reformcalifornia.org. If you're not on my email list, get on the email list. Sign up at reformcalifornia.org. I know I send out a lot of emails, but guess what? The Democrats do too. And we try to keep the emails informative so that you don't want to unsubscribe, that you're going to get something to keep updated. You also can like and share the YouTube channel at Carl DeMaio CA. So follow on that. That keeps you updated. And we are looking for partners in each of those areas. We are limited by bandwidth, but if a group called saying we want to do Reform Merced, how do we start? We would train you and get you part of our collective. By the way, you can go to those campaigns on the website, reformcalifornia.org, and you can start sharing those petitions, and it builds up in your area. It is not branded as any part of California. It's California-wide. So at any given time, I can pull a list of anyone who's signed any of these petitions online in your county, and we can message to them. And that's how the Democrats work. That's how we got to work.
Okay, I think this other question is kind of the same. They're asking, what is the address to all the areas you were showing us in the presentation? I want to see the Orange County voting guide. Yeah,
reformcalifornia.org is the website. Just click under all the buttons at the top.
Okay. Ladies, do we have questions from the floor?
Oh, here's one from Pamela. She says,
yeah.
isn't one of the reasons Republicans fight against Republicans is because some want to preserve the conservative platform, others want to change it to resemble Democrats.
Okay,
good. You nailed it. Who's trying to push us to be more like Democrats? Democrats, the media, and paid political consultants. And you know what? We've tried that, and it has not worked. I would rather have a proud conservative who's authentic than a dishonest moderate who is trying to have it both ways. The voters are going to take the authentic liberal over the cheap knockoff any day. Let's give them something that is a contrast. People have gone to me and said, oh, I supported Trump, but I can't run for office. Yeah, you can. By the way, the 2 women who we just shared with you that won those Democrat seats in overwhelmingly Democrat districts, both proud conservatives, both proudly admit they support President Trump, yet they won in the most Democrat areas. And so how do you square that up? You know why? They said, look, I'm not a traditional politician. I'm always going to be honest with you. And I'm going to say things that are going to piss you off. I voted for Trump. I voted for him because his policies were better than the other guy. But let's not be confused by national politics. Let me tell you why I'm running. I'm running to stop the mileage tax and stop the homeless population. And they quickly transition. So stop trying to be something you're not. The voter is smart enough to smell a fraud a mile away. I'm so sick of these consultants telling us not to be who we are. Be proud of who you are. Offer some bold ideas. I think the voters are, you know, I'd rather have you lose being who you are than to win being a fraud. And the voters will also know that.
Okay, we
Excellent.
have,
There's one about the voter rolls. Does
right,
report have a-
there's one before that from Suzanne. I'm sorry, Nancy.
Oh,
You see the one from
okay.
Suzanne? Do you want to go ahead and ask that?
It says, where are the petitions going aside from collecting the data?
So the petitions are designed to get us to where when we send out our voter guides in November of March and November of 24, that we have people who've already signed up on that issue. So we will send them an email, a text, an email, a text, an email, a text incessantly about, we know that you don't want homelessness. We know that you're afraid of crime. We know that you want better schools, you know, whatever they've signed. That's why we need you to vote for these candidates who've committed to be, and then we insert information on the issue. That's how Democrats do it. Second, we collect a crap ton of real petitions. And so when we're ready to actually send out the petitions to qualify ballot measures, that's when we use these lists. So anyone who pre-signs a petition, when we actually go into the field with a ballot measure, they're the first to get a mailing with the petition asking them to return it to us with a wet signature and to volunteer to get 10 signatures in addition. This has been quite amazingly successful. And so these petitions are crucial for us to get the activist community engaged. My good friend Judy Reeves, who, by the way, I think has registered more people than like the Department of Motor Vehicles. She says, does reform have a platform to clean them, have a platform to clean up the voter rolls? We are not allowed to clean up voter rolls as an outside organization, but we are supporting the watchdog work of the Transparency Foundation so that we can show the public the voter rolls are woefully mismanaged and out of date and build that case. We also can use that data, the investigatory research to support lawsuits, particularly in federal court under the Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act. So building the evidence base is crucial. The second thing is we've got to get our trusted conservatives to take jobs inside voter offices so that as ballots come back in and the signature clearly does not match, that a trusted conservative there can say, excuse me, I want to reject the ballot. Now, you're still going to have that snarky liberal across from you saying, no, it looks good to me. Well, then you get to basically, contest it with a supervisor. We're not going to be able to boot out all the bad signatures, but the goal is to boot out enough to then do the watchdog investigations, because at some point we're going to have a list of people who will step forward and say, my ballot was rejected. And you know why? It wasn't me who sent that in. I live in Dubuque, Iowa, or I don't want to vote. And I moved somewhere else. You know, we need to get those signatures rejected, not only for the integrity of the existing election, but then to show a judge enough affidavits showing that these signature checks are not being done properly. But ultimately, we're not going to get a fraud-free election until we can get voter ID enacted. And that's why I really want us to focus on a volunteer building of a base of volunteers to get those signatures. We did get the 1,000,004 signatures for the California Taxpayer Protection Initiative, which is on the ballot for November. But the voter ID initiative is going to be an even bigger challenge because I don't think we'll have the funding of the business groups to do that. We'll have to do that all through volunteers. So we're still looking at the variety of schedules that we're going to need and recruitment that we're going to need to engage in to pull that off.
Nancy, do you want to take the next one from Joanne Ladewig?
Okay, oops, I lost it. Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gretchen, because
Okay.
I lost it here.
That's okay.
I got one
Joanne's,
here. Jessica says, how do
Joanne's,
candidates get on your list in Orange County? So here's what we do. In Orange County, in Riverside, in some of the other counties like San Diego, we have told candidates who apply for the endorsement, seek the endorsement of your local party first. And we will vet them, and like we will offer an endorsement for them to use from us if they meet our criteria to go before the central committee of the Republican Party. But in some counties, the Republican Party doesn't do a good job issuing endorsements. So it's a challenge. This is a problem we're gonna have to fix. So we do have a form that we send out to candidates when they request an endorsement, that goes through a series of questions that are important to us in terms of policies. But what we want to do is try to get as many of the candidates to go through the official Republican endorsement process first, and then we offer a automatic endorsement. Now there are only a few exceptions to that statewide, and that is only if like the person's an axe murderer or something weird happened. But we don't want to split the vote. That's why we go about our endorsements that way. Do we endorse independents? Yes, we have endorsed a number of independents. Have we ever endorsed a Democrat? Actually, no. We've yet to find a Democrat who meets our criteria. Not that I would be opposed to. In a Democrat race, you might find a better Democrat than the other Democrat. But you know what I have found? There's no such thing as a moderate Democrat. Because if they're ambitious, they end up drinking the Kool-Aid. So it would be very, very odd for us to go that route, but we're not opposed. But again, I just don't see that happening.
I'm going to ask this question of Joanne's, and in the meantime, ladies, you can unmute yourself. If you have a question for Carl, you're welcome to unmute yourself and use the little raise your hand. The little, it's under reactions, little hand raise before you ask, and then we'll call on you. But Carl, Joanne from Garden Grove wants to know, what is the purpose of online petitions? To get something on the ballot, it needs to be on paper, right? What kind of petitions are you talking about?
Yeah, I already answered that question earlier.
You did? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Do we have, I don't know if we have any more.
Well,
I
how
got
about
one here.
the hand raise?
Barbara Region 4 says, I think we could win more elections if we could get more Republicans to vote. 23% of eligible Republican voters is not going to get the job done. Solutions? Barbara, you're absolutely right. The way to get Republicans to vote, number one, is to give them an exciting agenda. That's why framing the debate is key. Number two, they need to know that they can vote for a Republican in every race. No one's going to say, oh, I got to vote because, well, hold on a second. In my county, we didn't even put a candidate up. Number three, we got to get to those lazy Republicans and knock on their door with a personal solicitation from a volunteer saying, what does it hurt to vote? And so a lot of Republicans also don't vote because they don't have the endorsement guide. So all of these things that I just laid out for you are all about boosting turnout. And I do believe that we will get better participation if we apply these 5 strategies that I just laid out.
Oh, they're great.
Harry
Okay.
Nelson says we need to reach out to the moderate Republicans and Democrats. We can't be so narrow-minded to exclude those who aren't so conservative. Get the Republican in so we can make the change.
Harry, I guess I'm confused. I don't find anything lacking appeal in telling people that we're going to cut the gas tax to 0, cut utility rates by 25%, and give everyone a $2,500 rebate. That's not a flaming conservative agenda. That's just a common sense agenda. Or how about keeping criminals behind bars to serve their full sentence, or keeping sexually violent predators out of our neighborhoods? So I know when you say, well, aren't so conservative, I don't know what you mean, actually. I don't know what you mean. I want our Republicans to run on issues that are 70% issues, and be proud of that. And so I think what we have are weak-kneed politicians. I think the problem is that we've got, it's not liberal or conservative or moderate. We got really milquetoast politicians. I've seen a politician go to a conservative group and give them red meat. And they turn around, they go right down the street to a liberal group and give them Green New Deal. And I'm like, what? Wow. Like, don't you think people compare notes? They're going to figure out you're a fraud, mister. And so I do worry about the lack of authenticity. I think we need to be a grassroots populist party focused on 70% issues. And I don't think that that really has a label of conservative or liberal. I think it's just common sense on the three issues that I laid out. Now, if there are issues of abortion and other issues, again, let's look at where the voters are. People can respectfully disagree on issues and be honest about where they are. For example, I believe in the heartbeat bill. I don't think an abortion should be legal after a heartbeat. Now, that makes me virulently pro-life to the left. But to some on the right, that would presume that up to a heartbeat, an abortion could be allowed. Well, in California, they just passed a bill making it partial birth abortion, for goodness sakes.
No.
So when people say moderate and conservative, what I always say is pick the 70% or 60% issue that's on the principle and go all in.
Right.
And I think if we do that, we're the majority party. I think Californians actually agree with us more than they agree with Democrats.
Well, you can't be so far right that you're wrong, because we need to be able to be a little bit flexible on some of the issues is what my point was going to be. Because some people,
But give me an issue real quick. Give me an issue.
well, you
Give me an
mentioned the
example.
abortion issue.
Yep.
I don't believe in abortion at the end, but if somebody has been raped, things like that, there's times that there are situations that an abortion could be happening, even if you do have a heartbeat. Molestation, there's other fine
Sure.
lines.
Yeah, and you know what? I think
Fine
acknowledging that it's a difficult issue
Mhm.
is what people want to hear. But what you do at that point is say, look, this is not an issue that one seat or one vote's going to determine. But I'll tell you right now, they want us to fight on this issue because it's emotional and it's hard to figure out because, you know, people have very strong, genuine views on both sides. But that's how they get you to have to pay $5, $10 a gallon at the gas tank, or, to double your electricity, is that they play the shiny object game to manipulate us with these issues.
Exactly.
Why I'm running on this other issue. We've got to get our candidates to take the principled, hardcore positions on the issues that the voters are 70% on our side.
Right.
Yes.
I
Gretchen, we've got to take some other hand raised. Are there some with their hands raised?
I don't see any.
I saw Barbara Hallmeyer had her hand raised.
She did. I didn't see it. I just flipped through the screen.
He just answered.
Yeah, I didn't see
Oh,
I
it was a
didn't see-
thumbs up. It was a thumbs up. There's
Kathy
now here's
says
a
about
comment.
the vote
Yeah.
rigging. Yeah, let me
Kathy
address that.
Weiss, I've heard a
Oh,
lot.
I
of
hate it
people-
when I hear a voter say that they're so depressed and they don't think that the election has integrity and they're not going to vote, because you know what? That's what Democrats want to have happening. They want us, and by the way, let me just tell you right now, the Democrats are engaging in voter fraud. There's no doubt about it. The question is how much. And here's the thing. You know damn well that they're greedy. And if they were engaging in all, changing election results with Dominion machines, do you really think they would have allowed Mike Garcia, David Valadao, John Duarte, Michelle Steele, Ken Calvert to win? No, they're greedy. They'd be like, oops, you guys lost by 100 votes. Oops, you lost by a little bit. No, where they're stealing elections is on the margins. It's still a problem because we're losing seats on the margins. They're harvesting ballots. They're submitting ballots without proper signatures, and they are stuffing the box that way. It's hard to prove. That's why they do it that way. Software changes, easy to prove. Harvesting ballots and getting them in, hard to prove. So I think they've been telling us all along how they're doing their scam. And so we need to explain to our Republican voters that yes, the fraud is occurring, but the way the fraud occurs is the harvesting, it's on the margins, and that means that we have to win the seats by even more votes, which is why your vote is even more valuable. It's even more important. You know that election win that we had in La Mesa, a city of 65,000 people. We won the seat by 11 votes.
Wow.
And I guarantee you that the Democrats had at least 1,000 illegal ballots in that election.
Wow.
We went door to door to salvage the voter the rejected ballots. Pamela says, don't they give Republicans token wins? I guarantee you the ones that they lost were no token because they lost the majority, Pamela. Okay. So I guarantee you that yes, fraud is happening, but it is not, the goose is not cooked. Okay. It's not a fait accompli. The fraud occurs. It's not fair. And that means we have to win elections by like 2 or 3 points above what we should just to win by 1 vote. And that's why every vote is precious and we got to get everyone out to vote. We got to give them hope.
Carl, someone was asking if you could explain what on the margin means. Votes on the margin, elections on the margin.
So what I mean is out of 100% of the vote in the swing seats and the target seats, I do believe that Democrats have the ability to stuff about 1 to 2, maybe 3% of the ballots, maybe 4% in smaller races, given the current lack of integrity in the election. So when I tell candidates you got to win, I tell them you need to be prepared to win by 3 to 5 percentage points, and then it will show on paper you won by 11 votes.
Oh, wow.
So what it means is that there's no like destiny that we're losing a seat because they changed the code or software. But what it does mean is we got to hustle even more. It's not a fair fight. No, it's not fair. They cheat. They are cheaters. There's just no doubt about it. But you cannot sit there and basically let them get the whole election by suppressing our own vote, by telling people it's a fait accompli. I'm not an election denier in the least. I am someone who deals in facts and in evidence. And the facts are that our current way of voting lacks integrity. The facts are the voters want voter ID and they do not agree with ballot harvesting and they do want signature checks. Those are the facts. The facts are people are getting ballots that no longer live here. Those are the facts. The media doesn't want to acknowledge it. There's no denialism in that. That's called truth. Now, do I have proof of how much is being stolen? No. But given all these other issues I just laid out, it is reasonable for people to have pause and concern about who the ultimate winner is. So it just means that we've got to work even harder. And that's what I have to continue to convey to Republicans. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't let them discourage you from voting. That's what they want. They laugh at us when our conservatives say, wait to the election day and walk in your ballot and surrender it and demand a new paper ballot. It's like, no, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. Stop spreading misinformation. Get your ballots in, verify you were voted, and then go work 5 shifts at the election office to validate signatures. And by the way, in your off time, drag your daughter, your granddaughter, your friend, your barber, your cousin to drag them into the polls every day until election day.
Mm.
Carl, there's a question about how can we stop or cut down on all of the infighting among Republicans in California? Do you see any sort of conspiracy in the fact that so many Republican groups are going through really divisive, rough times right now?
Okay, so in my prior life, I ran a company that focused on performance management and change management. And there are studies of dying organizations. In a dying organization, one of the attributes is that there is intense internal fighting. People are afraid. They're angry. They're depressed. They're frustrated. They're apprehensive. They're stressed out. And so instead of being productive, the temptation is to blame and to fight with each other, because that's apparently all you can do to win and get satisfaction. There's also always going to be egos. And for people who think it's all hunky-dory on the Democrat side, it's not. They have a bunch of shit kickers over there and a lot of vicious fights. And, you know, it's crazy. You've not seen a vicious fight till you've seen two drag queens take it out on a runway. So they have fights on the Democrat side.
Better than in a library.
Yeah. They have fights on the Democrat side. Nothing is always perfect on their side. But I do know that the psychological studies, the organizational studies show that in organizations or cultures or movements that are experiencing great stress, and California Republicans are, because we're a super minority, that there tends to be a higher level of infighting. We have infighting in San Diego. We've been able to work out some of that stuff, but we still have a group of misfits. I have a list. I know who they are. And what I always do is say, there are sinners, saints, and savables. I consider very few people to be sinners, okay? From the standpoint of, there's just no way that you're ever going to change your behavior. But the savables you work with. But I always still invite the sinners. Hey, you know, be productive. And they always reject. They always say no, and they go off and they do their own thing. And you just kind of shrug your shoulders and just don't worry about it. The final bit of advice I would have is that if we are moving in a positive direction, nothing gets people back on the same page than progress. So I think as we start getting our clubs and coalitions to start working on projects that are moving the needle, that you're going to start seeing a lot less of the internal division and strife. I know what's going on with the Republican women. I know what's going on and has been going on with college Republicans. We pretty much stay out of that. I've told people I will go to a Republican women club, federation, California. I will do whatever. And we meet people where they are. But the goal is then to lay out something and offer an invitation to something that will be productive. And if people don't do it, fine. If they do, then great. But I think creating success is the most important thing. Finally, amongst our candidates, one of the reasons why we have infighting at the party amongst candidates is that you need to know that Republican political consultants in California are the worst form of creature. The ones that are left out here are failures. They could never actually go to another state because people would say, you're a failure, you're from California. So they stay here and they get paid to fail. I have never seen an industry, as a businessman, I have never seen an industry reward failure as much as California Republicans do. I have never seen this. And it is so infuriating. So I'll say it. Don't give to the national party. Don't give to the state party. You know who you should give your money to? A candidate in a winnable seat that you really are excited by. Give your money to a candidate. They will always spend it infinitely better. Or if you find a county Republican Party or organization that's actually got a plan and doing work, give money to them. But I just simply do not trust what's left of the California Republican Party because they're basically run by consultants who enrich themselves. And I do not trust the National Party to give a damn about what happens to us in California. I don't want California to be used as an ATM machine for races in Pennsylvania. I want that money to remain here because we matter and we are contributing to national wins. So I think the infighting is on many levels. It's discouraging, but it's not something that's impossible to work around. And the Democrats are just as screwed up as we are, if not worse so.
Okay, there's one more question here. How will voter ID work with mail-in ballots?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. So we require that if you do use a mail-in ballot, that you have to, number one, provide the last 4 digits of your government-issued driver's license. And number two, that your signature shall match. And we actually put in place a definition of what match means in our bill. You might say, well, Carl, what about the illegal immigrants that are getting licenses? We have a separate provision of our bill that requires a proper maintenance and audit of election and verification of eligibility. So will it eliminate things? No, but it will tighten up enough of the screws where they need to be tightened that I think we will basically make it impossible for Democrats to really run a fraud campaign. They, at that point, would be forced to literally try to hack software. And I think that leaves too much of a trail. But I really do believe that this election integrity bill is the most important thing that we can pass in California. It's going to be difficult, but I'm committed to doing it.
Okay.
That is fantastic. Were there any other questions we're leaving hanging there? Gretchen and Nancy?
I think we've covered it all. Oh,
You
well,
covered
you know what? We're past
We're-
time. We're way past.
Yeah.
the
I know we are. Did you want to have anybody who left something in the chat be given to Carl and see if he could email them a response if it's that?
Yeah, if you want to, just go to the website reformcalifornia.org, sign up, because if you're not on our email list, you're not going to know what's going on. And also you can email us at info@reformcalifornia.org. And we reply within 24 hours, info@reformcalifornia.org. And let me just say in closing, thank you. I cannot tell you that, I mean, on so many levels, we are not able to do the programs that we do without Republican women as our volunteer backbone, our core volunteers. In this last election, Republican women in just 2022, not in counting the recall, because counting the recall, it's much more, they hand addressed 1.25 million hand addressed letters with voter guides inside. And they did it in mailing parties all around Southern California. And we had a great partnership with the Orange County and Riverside groups, San Diego groups. And these Republican clubs, these women, they made a whole program out of it. And we would never have been able to do that. I cannot tell you how many elections are won because of that. How many candidates came to us saying, wow, like no one else had handwritten mailers. And the Democrats do it all the time. But now this election cycle, we actually did it here in California, and it was in the target seats. And I do believe that you're looking at members of Congress who won because of the work that the Republican women did this last cycle. So thank you.
That's our goal. That has been why we were ever founded. So I want us to keep on that path. And it has been such a wonderful time with you tonight, Carl. I've learned a lot and I've gotten some encouragement I didn't expect. I didn't expect to be encouraged by what you were saying, because I do see people leaving for Utah and Idaho and Florida. But you're right. We need to stay and fight. And that's what's going to make our state golden again. So appreciate it. I want to thank our team who have put this on. I do want to thank Nancy Wofford and Gretchen Cox. I will turn this over to you in a minute, Gretchen, and certainly Audrey Voigt and Sherry Gillis. I don't know if we can see Sherry. And Barbara, you've been a big help tonight too. Barbara Hallmeyer, Region 4. But this is just the beginning. It was just the beginning of a whole series of speakers. And I want to turn it over to Gretchen to be able to remind you again, if you didn't hear at the beginning, we have 3 more following, and there will be more after that. But for right now, the ones that you can register for, I will turn it over to Gretchen and have her remind you.
Okay. So coming up, ladies, on April 11th, on March 28th, we have Utah State Treasurer Marlo Oakes, who will be talking about ESG investing and woke capitalism. A few of us heard this presentation before, and it's fascinating. I didn't know much at all about either of those two phrases when we first heard them. And I felt so smart at the end of this guy's talk. He really does a good job of explaining what those things are. And how we can push back against them personally and through our electeds. On April 11th, we will have Tom Del Beccaro, Most of you know him, and he's been a good friend to CFRW for many years. He will be with us April 11th. On April 18th, we will have Susan Shelley. Most of you know her if you live in Southern California, at least. She's a very well-known journalist, opinion columnist, editorial writer. She's the Vice President of Communications for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. So she will be on April 18th, and all of these start at 6:30 p.m. So try to log on early to make sure that you don't miss anything. You missed a whole dance number if you weren't here at the beginning tonight. I'm so sorry if you were late, but it was good. So everything starts at 6:30. We're planning them for an hour to include question and answer time. They are free and they are open to anybody. So please invite your Republican friends to participate. And we will be adding more names to the list in the next coming week. So keep your eye on your email for messages from the desk of CFRW President Janet Price to announce more speakers, and also check the website as well. And you can register very easily right there. And that's, oh yeah, gave you the website. So I believe we're gonna leave this on for a little bit. If there's ladies here who want to chit chat for a bit, I have to leave because I have something else to go to. But for those of you that want to stay on, thank you all for coming tonight and being here. Really appreciate it. It was nice to see all of your faces.
Thank you. We were going to play our video one more time before we go to the chat.
Right.
Oh yeah, you want to see Sherry's the video. She did such a good job on this.
Yes, Sherry's
This is a treat.
Oh.